Hi, I'm Sam, and it's very early. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at 5, had a cup of coffee and marched up this hill, just so I could be alone, because there's just so many people around this time of year. Finding somewhere to make a video is more difficult. So I'm in the woods, and there's a ravine here with a waterfall that I'll show you in a minute. So apologies, my voice is extra croaky because it's so early. Though the title seems a bit dark, and I need to talk about some difficult things first, it's going to go somewhere good. So I need to keep my glasses on as well, because I need to see where my feet are going. I don't want to fall over. If I do fall over, I'll just cut and start again. So, yeah, I woke up a couple of mornings ago with this anger, and I realised I'd wasted my life. And I'm going to talk about what I mean. It's very difficult to waste a life. You know, we're all learning all the time. We're all teaching all the time. So I'll explain what I mean. You know, I was born into difficulty and experienced terrible neglect from pretty much as soon as I was born. Thankfully, I don't remember the worst of it. My body does though, and my mind does, but I can't clearly remember it. But I bear the scars. Those fascinating scars that I prodded and poked when I was a child. Dissociated from my body. Disgusted that this place of pain and misery was actually me, with its wrinkled flesh, sinewy scars and awful pain. I think in that dissociation, the disgust really was a horror as well, that I seemed to be in this form that was the focus of so much pain, and because I was so badly injured, I was inconsolable because I was terrified, and because I was inconsolable, I was ignored and injured myself further, and learned that I was alone, and I think that fed the further disgust with myself and self-hate, because, you know, I think that what I hated myself most for as I grew older, I mean, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, what I hated myself most for was the fact that I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. And the more I tried to be accepted, the more I tried to be loved, the more I was rejected. And the more desperate I became. And I hated myself because that need to be loved was such a source of pain, and I felt weak. I felt that it was a weakness, a vulnerability. So, you know, as I was growing through my childhood, I just eventually, by the time my age was in double figures, I was already drinking and doing other things, and created a really tough exterior and started to destroy my environment. So nobody did anything. But that feeling of disgust with myself and the neglect I experienced. I was dirty all the time. I was dirty and smelly, and my fingernails were black and my feet were dirty and all my teeth were rotten because I lived on cornflakes and sugar. Nobody did anything. Nobody asked why. So it just fed that feeling of disgust. I'll just show you this waterfall. A little interlude. In the winter that freezes solid. So yeah, I just knew I was alone, and I forgot I hated myself. I forgot that desperate need to be loved, and I just turned all that into rage. You can just see the loch down there. Yeah, I turned it all into rage. And as a young man, that got me in a lot of trouble. I met lots of other angry young men from broken homes, and the violence that defined my young life just became worse and worse. The conflict I lived in just became consuming, and my life was in danger frequently, and some terrible things happened in my early 20s, and I eventually just broke, and I just wanted to disappear. So I made myself thin. I stopped eating. I think I was maybe 23, 24. I just stopped eating, and control. I wanted control. In a crazy world where everything was falling apart around me, as it always had done. I wanted control, so I just made myself thin. I wanted to eat, but I didn't. And it felt really good. So my body just became thinner and thinner and thinner. And I felt that that disgusting, dirty boy who was unlovable, unwanted, corrupt, annoying in the way, he just disappeared, and I became more and more androgynous. I think that was the first part of me leading up to transition. And my mum was absent when I was a kid, and I think also my sister had a completely different relationship with my parents. I think maybe that's why I started to clothe myself as her. I don't know, but I think my mum being absent and me sort of layering on her clothes may have been some kind of way of becoming closer to her. I have no idea, but either way, it's something I did when I was a kid, and I think in my 20s I started to do it again because I wanted to disappear and sort of transform and escape, and the idea began to become a focus. And so eventually over the next few years I had therapy, and started to transition, and the first thing I did when I transitioned was I fixed all my teeth, those rotten teeth from childhood, and every step I took on that path of transition was a cleansing. That's how it felt. And the ultimate cleansing was the main surgery, having my genitals removed. And I sat in the garden of the hospital where I had it done, and I felt relieved, and I felt clean. I felt clean. But of course, I just found a really consuming strategy to escape myself. And but I think, you know, when I was a kid and I would look at women, you know, because my mum wasn't around much, I became so fascinated by women, and they just seemed so different. They were these towering beings of power and presence, and I think, you know, I wanted to be inside that power, and, you know, and to feel safe. I think the men around me were violent, and men just seemed two-dimensional and terrifying to me, and women just seemed like what a woman seems like to a little boy. Everything. So to become that power and presence was all I was really focused on. You know, there is, of course, a sexual component because we're sexual beings, so sexuality has to be incorporated in it somehow. But I didn't really focus on that. It was there, but my focus was on becoming this pristine being. And so something happened after I transitioned. It was a great surprise. And, you know, although you wouldn't think it now with this voice, and, you know, I'm 25 years older, but I did pass fairly well, and most of the time when I was first transitioned. And the surprising thing that happened was that I was in a nightclub one evening, and I remember exactly what I was wearing, actually. I was wearing a lace dress, a Templey dress. Those people in London will know Templey. It was really expensive. And I had a pair of satin high heels on and long hair. And I was leaning against a wall. Because my feet hurt, probably. And this guy came up to me, and he put his hand on the wall next to me and just kind of leant in, and then he looked past me out of the window. He said, "Oh, I'm just checking my car, it's a Porsche." Oh, and I just went, no. Inwardly, outwardly I just smiled, because I thought, oh, okay, this is a game. But inwardly I just went, no, more, something better, please, give me some credit. But, you know, that was when I thought, oh, okay, men find me attractive, the game is on. And I felt powerful. I felt very powerful, and that just fed into my strategy. I thought, oh, okay, right, I need to do this, this and this, and then I'll be seen, then I'll be desired, then I'll be wanted. I mean, it wasn't tarty or anything like that. I was very chic, but I knew that people noticed me because I'm very tall, and so, you know, I used to get compliments from women, and men would come on to me fairly often, and that to that dirty little boy who was disgusted and alone and so unworthy felt like a superpower. I thought, yes, I have power. I have power and control for the first time in my life. But in that tragic way that young girls sometimes do when they blossom into their own sexuality, and they find that men find them attractive, I gave my body away far too easily, too often, and demeaned myself, allowed myself to be hurt. And thankfully I don't remember the faces of those men, and I'm very grateful for that. Further shame, of course, further shame. But that's what happens when you feel that in the core of you are corrupt and dirty and unworthy. You do things in desperation. You do not esteem yourself. You do not value yourself, no matter how beautiful you look or how successful you think you are. But the core of it is unworthiness. And I was deeply unworthy. And I remembered something actually as I was walking up here. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was learning how to swim, doing doggy paddle on the beach, on the shore. And there was a woman with her son. She was standing in the water, and he was about the same age as me, and I did my best doggy paddle around him in a really tight circle. I mean, strange behaviour. And she looked down at me, and the little boy said, "That's not swimming, is it, Mummy?" And she said, "No." And how crushed I felt, I remember. But that desperation to be seen defined my life. And also, in that desperation, I didn't think anything through thoroughly. I was driven by that need to escape and find worthiness and to be noticed. So everything I did, all the surgery I had when I transitioned, I didn't research it properly. Half of the surgery I had done, I had about 12 things done. Half of it went wrong and had to be redone. It's still not right. Thankfully, the main surgery went without any problem. Minor problem, but that was okay. I covered myself in tattoos to be noticed as well, and I didn't research the tattooist. I just wanted to be covered. I wanted to be seen. So I'm covered in brightly coloured tattoos all over my back and down my backside and down one leg and both arms, across my shoulders, and I just wanted to be seen. And so in that desperation, nothing is done properly. But over the last few years on this channel, another desperate attempt to be seen. I started the channel when I lived on an island, and I was in an isolated situation that if I could go back I would. Believe me, it was magical. Now I can see it from a different perspective. In my desperation, because I was alone a lot of the time, I wanted to be seen, and I reached out into the world and started putting videos on YouTube. And so over the last 3 years of this channel, I've gradually uncovered everything I've just talked about. The core shame, the unworthiness, the desperate need to be seen. And I think as a child, if you're not seen and you're treated with hostility, you never fully enter reality. You're never really here, because you need a tether, you need an anchor, you need someone to attach to, and then you can draw yourself into reality and you feel safe. You say, okay, this is where I belong. I never had that. I had hostility and pain. So this channel was a lifeline. I threw it out into the world. So can you see me? But what people saw, whether they knew it or not, I knew was a facade. And if you look at my older videos, my voice is completely different. There's one video that I made with a trans man in Australia, and in the intro you can hear my voice, and that's how I used to talk. And I'm, you know, doing mannerisms and speaking in a much more feminine voice, and it was all performance. I was playing a role. And I could see that in my videos, and it made me feel the existential pain of that child who felt he was unworthy. And so over time I've been connecting with that shame, that core shame, that unworthiness, and it's very difficult. But something has changed lately, and I don't know whether it's because I started testosterone. You know, I started testosterone about 10 days ago, and that I do feel different. I'm only on a small dose. I mean, I'm still on HRT. I'm not going to fuck around with my body any more than I have to, but I do feel different. I feel slightly more confident. I feel more present. Maybe my body needs it, but I feel more stable, because I'm supposed to be a man, aren't I? And that is undeniable. So there's been a change, and I think that's why I woke up with anger the other morning at the wasted life. Wasted in shame. No time is really wasted, of course it isn't, but wasted in self-hate and shame. And you know, all the time I've been detransitioning over the last few years, I've been doing it because I thought it was the right thing to do, and truthfully, you know, I still felt very comfortable as a fake woman. But I knew that it was in the way of true connection and intimacy and presence. I can't find my place in the world if I'm pretending to be something I'm not. And the world wants something from us. We're not separate. We don't treat this realm of being as a resource, as a playground for our pleasure. We have a purpose here, and we have to find that purpose by being ourselves. That's all we need to do. Every blade of grass, every tree, every beautiful fern is in exactly the right place. And it can be no other way. So, you know, our absence is noted if we're pretending to be something we're not, because we hurt reality. And so what we need to do is just to be ourselves, to be real. And then I think reality starts to work with us and magical things start happening. And so, you know, that's just happening for me. So all my life I've just pretended because I thought I was unworthy. And that narrative in my head, it's difficult to explain what abuse does to you. You know, if you haven't experienced abuse in childhood, you know, you can conceptualize, okay, growing up in fear and pain and physical harm and emotional abuse and sexual abuse, you can conceptualize that, but to understand what it actually does to your sense of self as you form, if that's all you've grown up in, I mean, it's indescribable, the narrative I've had in my head all my life of self-hate. Every time I would meet someone, I just think they hate you, you're an idiot, you're unworthy, everything you do is shit, you can't, nothing good can come from you because you are not good, you are corrupt, you deserve every bad thing that's happened to you. And everybody can see that, they can look into you and they can see how shit you are. And all they're going to do when you turn your back is just talk about you and laugh about you and say what a fucking idiot you are. And that's what it's like all the time. But that narrative is getting quieter and quieter. So, I think that realization that I'd wasted my life hating myself and feeling such shame, that came to me because change is happening. Because change is happening. Because my perspective is shifting. I'm healing. And I'm accepting that I'm a man. Now, all of this sounds just so trivial. Pretending to be a woman just to escape myself and fulfill some childhood fantasy. Because it is trivial. It's child's play. It's child's play. And I think transition traps you in a childlike relationship to reality where you're living a fantasy. And that fantasy is a reality bubble that is, when it comes into contact with the reality, the truth, you feel existential pain and you feel unstable. So, as I said in that conversation with Corinna, there is no your truth or my reality and your reality. There is only one. There is only one reality and one truth. No doubt there are nested realms of being, but this is the reality we share. This is the truth we share. And our subjective relationship to that truth is dictated by how willing we are to face the pain we carry and dissolve our own illusions and actually be here. Be here. Because if you're not here, how can you find your purpose? How can you understand what reality wants from you? What is the gift that you bring into the world for others? Not what do you want, what pleasure. What are you supposed to be doing? And I'm just finding that out. So, it's been a pretty incredible week, and that anger has eased a bit, and I do feel better, but I feel good about detransition now. I feel very good about becoming real at last, and I forgive myself for everything. I forgive my parents. So, just have a few more words to say, and then I'll show you the waterfall and say goodbye. I have to keep moving because I'm getting eaten by midges. So the story I've believed my whole life was the story I've just told that I was unworthy of anything good happening, undeserving, and broken and corrupt. But as all the structures I'd built in my life to support this false identity, this coping strategy, as they all kind of crumbled, all my resources were used up. I had nothing else but me. No currency in the world but me. And what I've realised this week is that, that story I believed my whole life, that the me that I had to offer was hateful, broken, corrupt. As I've had to process all the, those difficult memories, and come to these realizations I've been sharing, I realised that I'm actually building a life, and it doesn't rely on how much money I've got, how many stories I can tell about my successes and failures, what car I drive, how big my house is, what clothes I'm wearing. It relies on how I conduct myself in my relationships. Am I honest? Am I true? Am I reliable? Am I consistent? And so this sounds very humble, but I've started looking after people's dogs in the village, and I have a reputation for being good with dogs. And maybe because we're on the same wavelength. So, you know, there are people that trust me, and I realised actually that I am actually beginning to rebuild my life, and that life is, you know, built on honesty about who I am. And I only just realised that. So it's a humble beginning, being a dog walker, but the grand ideas of the life I used to have were really all about escape. But now I'm here, and I get to spend my time with dogs and with people that appreciate the love I give their dogs. And my therapist said to me this week as well, I'll just finish on this and then I'll show you the waterfall. My therapist said to me this week that he thinks I'd make a good counsellor, and he'll support me and help me if I want to start training. And you know, I cried when he said that. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for me to hear something, you know, to hear something good like that. Somebody that thinks well of me when I've never thought well of myself. And so that story I've had in my mind about who I was, I'm starting to believe another story now. And that story is based on real evidence that I see in my life every day. We need to take note of the positive dissonance with that negative narrative that we carry in our own minds if you suffered through abuse. And we don't want to believe the good stuff because we're cynical and we say, no, it's a lie, or people are gonna let me down and they're just lying to me to be nice. I used to think that all the time, but I don't anymore. I know people aren't lying to me to be nice. I know my therapist isn't lying to me to be nice. I know the people whose dogs I look after aren't lying to me. They value me. And so you can change, you can heal. It just takes time. A long time. And then life takes on meaning, and we can find our purpose in relationship. I'm going to show you the waterfall and say goodbye. Oh God, I'm getting eaten alive by midges. So it's early, and I know I repeated myself a little bit in that. I kept losing my train of thought, so let's keep walking. That's better. So thanks for watching, thanks for your support, everybody who leaves such lovely comments, and those people that I talk to regularly. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.